process, Jody?
We are bringing on Legacy Title of Oklahoma. We have Chris Morris and Lisa Kalman joining us.
Yes. Good morning, guys. Yay.
This is going to be great.
Thanks for that live look outside at the cumulus clouds. Are those cumulus?
Yeah, they were cumulus.
Oh, good one.
Good job.
He Googled it.
He Googled it.
What?
All right, so obviously Chris has had his cup of coffee. So I'm glad one of us is awake.
That's right.
All right, guys. So, hey, tell us a little bit about yourself. How long you been at Legacy Title, in the business, et cetera, what you do, that kind of deal.
Yeah.
You go?
You go.
Morning, Chris Morris, and we have both been at Legacy Title since about October of 22, brand new company. I've been in the business for 7-8 years. Lisa, 50, 60 years, something like that. Yeah.
Every time.
If you haven't figured it out, we've actually brought Chris on for comedic relief. He actually serves no purpose at Legacy Title other than the clown. So he walks around and just makes everybody happy and cheery. So he gets paid very well to do that. Whereas Lisa actually handles all the real math and the hard work and the paperwork. So when we do have this interview today, just keep that in mind of who's the important one here. But Lisa, go ahead and tell us about yourself as well.
So I'm Lisa Kalman. I've been in the industry. I'm going into my 37th year next month.
Oh,
Wow, congratulations.
So I started out in the business when you had to hand type all of the documents, and you didn't have fax machines, and you didn't have computers.
Whoa.
I know. Can you imagine this business without that? It's crazy.
Oh.
Anyway, Chris and I made the move a year ago to Legacy Title. We are equity partners with 2 other people who are wonderful, and we had worked for a big box title company. It was a great company, but it was just time for us. We had an opportunity. It was just time for us to go out on our own. And so here we are. We're a boutique title company. We get to make the decisions daily. We're focused on customer relations. That is what is going to put you ahead in this market.
Absolutely.
Okay, agreed. And so, as you can tell already, the 4 of us have obviously known each other here for at least a little bit. We love these 2.
Yes.
I mean, they're so much fun to work with. Love the personalities. They're genuine people. They're sweet, loving, fun, all that kind of stuff. So we couldn't ask for a better place to partner with at Legacy Title, and these guys are rock stars. So let's get into what in the world it is that you guys actually do.
Right.
Other than goofing around, Chris actually does do some work. So what does the title company do for the typical person in the home buying process?
Right.
Yeah.
So we have a couple of roles. Primary role is to ensure that homes get closed properly, legally, that sellers can present, a clear and marketable title to buyers. We aggregate all of the invoices that you lovely agents send over to us. And a big role for each and every title company is to, when buyers and sellers alike come in, to ensure they understand everything that they sign. You mentioned earlier, this is the only area where you just show up and trust me, sign everything. That's also how I got into the Army years ago. So there are at least a couple of those areas. But our goal is to ensure that everybody is covered, protected. If you really boil it down, we sling title insurance. That's kind of our primary function. But that's not exactly like watching Top Gun. So we generally don't talk a whole lot about, title insurance itself. We just want to ensure that the process is smooth, everybody feels safe, comfortable, happy. And we're really involved in kind of putting that bow on the presence of folks selling a house or buying their next dream home.
Okay, and then so you did mention the word title insurance.
Yes.
So what is title insurance?
So
Lisa?
title insurance is different than any other insurance that you purchase. Insurance that you purchase for your cars, your home, that protects you for the future. Title insurance protects you for the past. So think about that. From the day the deed is filed, it protects you from what's happened in the past. So it's very interesting. To issue title insurance in Oklahoma, it's a multi-step process, and we can talk more about that, or because it's kind of a boring process. But just know it protects you in the past, not the future. So we're protecting you that everybody has signed proper conveyances, all the taxes are paid, there's no bankruptcies. The IRS is not going to come knock on the door and say, I'm seizing this house because the former owner had $2 million worth of tax liens. All of those records have been checked, and we are issuing you a policy that protects you as long as you own the home.
That's a good
Okay.
point, because when you go in to buy the home, you have no idea of the financial history of the person you're buying the home from, and they could be as crooked as they come with every person knocking on their door to try to take away that possession with liens and who else,
That's
who
right.
knows what else. So you guys come in and save the day and says, wait a minute, let's make sure that this is free and clear and that
Yeah.
nobody is going to try to take a claim on what you're about to put down a purchase on.
That's right. No one's going to come knocking. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's good.
And that's a similar process. We had title insurance back in Canada as well.
Well, I would hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's universal.
Now, give me, and this is a side question to this. Okay. I like how she just has to throw in Canada in every broadcast.
Well, of course.
Of course, it's for her Canadian peeps that are watching. It's kind of like an homage. Okay, so on the side note, in theory, but on a side note, like on average, if you had to guess, what percentage of homes you come across in this process, you're like, oh, there was something here, and it doesn't have to be a hard number. Just roughly, how many homes do have some type of issue where
Right.
it's a good thing you were there because otherwise the homeowner would have been in a bad situation?
Pretty low. One of the lucky pieces to being in the abstracting state is there is an incredible amount of research and due diligence done on every single property sold in Oklahoma. So we're, the abstractors, the attorneys have done a lot of work each time a home sells or it's conveyed to another party. So we really, there aren't a high number of issues on transactions. Much lower than one would
Okay.
think.
And that's
Okay.
that's because you said the key word, Oklahoma was an abstract state. If we weren't an abstract state, you're saying it'd be a lot messier.
Yeah, and that's one of the common misconceptions. When I'm talking abstracting to agents and folks out in the market, I kind of do a compare and contrast. Iowa's the only other abstracting state in the union, if I'm not mistaken. The other do digital from last deed filed, last policy issued. They're basically going back and looking digitally at just the last document that was squared away. What you do in an abstracting state is we're basically going to go back, and some of them even predate statehood, and we go back and look at every single legal owner of the property, conveyances, easements, everything basically could have been attached to that property.
Wow.
It gives us a lot fewer claims than the other 48 states because, again, we're doing more research. Also allows us to, we can pass those savings on to our consumers. Buyers, we're not having to file many claims. We get to pass those savings on directly to the consumer.
Okay,
That's great.
Well, that's great news.
Well, that's sort of tie in maybe to the next one that we have, which how are the title premiums calculated?
So in the state of Oklahoma, since we're an insurance company, we have to file our rates with the insurance commissioner. Okay. As far as how the initial calculation was done back when they started title insurance, it's probably was based on just what the market would dictate. But all title companies file a rate card with the insurance commissioner. The rates in Oklahoma, you can give discounts on the rates, and there are times that we give discounts. For instance, if we closed the house before for somebody, we'll issue a reissue rate. If somebody's refinancing their house, we'll give a discount because a refinance policy is much less risk than an actual owner's policy. We also, for pricing for our company, most title companies have to file abstract rates. So all these things are regulated, which is a good thing. It can be good and can be bad both. Like I said, title insurance can be discounted. Abstract prices can never be discounted. That is a big no-no. And if you discount abstract pricing, I think it's like a $20,000 fine.
Wow.
On abstracting. But there are some states that you can't discount title insurance at all. I think Texas, is it called promulgated or
Yes, promulgated.
promulgated title rates in Texas, and those are what they are, and there's no discounts given at all. It's very interesting from state to state how it changes and varies.
Previously, it was considered an act of treason to discount abstracting in America. Maybe. That probably isn't true. It could have been.
You might as well have been. Let's just put it that way.
That's right.
Okay,
Let's just go with it.
so here's a good common question.
Right.
Depending on the credit situation, when somebody's qualifying for a home, someone in the household may be buying it, and even though they're married, right? It could have a spouse, but only the husband's on the deed. So in that particular case, why does the spouse or whoever else is in that party have to also sign documents?
Oklahoma, that's a great question, and probably the single most asked question in what we do. Oklahoma is what's considered a marital state. a little bit different than, community property. And so once you have a spouse, they are 100% vested and entitled to that property, right?
Beware of marrying him just for that reason. Just saying.
Yeah, for many others as well. But common misconceptions, especially when we work with some of our national lenders who maybe aren't as familiar with Oklahoma title law. There are some ways to where a spouse does not have to sign a mortgage. They may not even sign the deed. Again, if you're married, you're still going to be, vested in that property. But kind of the common, what we talk to folks about is it takes one to buy and two to sell. That's a bit of a fraud deterrent. So when you go to sell that house, both spouses are going to have to sign.
And there's no way around that if it's held in their individual name. I mean, if you have it in your trust or your LLC, your spouse, if you own the properties, for instance, if Aaron owned the house and you married him, Jody, and you had to put on with him, you would have to sign the deed for him to sell the property.
So that would, right, that makes sense because that would tie into your homestead rights, correct?
Correct. That's exactly why.
Yes. Okay, I'm familiar with the homestead rights.
It's interesting because in this situation, and this is completely off topic because we're doing her green card extension process where you have to provide documents that says, hey, we actually live together and this is actual real relationship and she's not coming here just to get a free ride, right? Well, in there they said, give a copy of your mortgage deed. Well, at that time, when I refinanced my house the last time around, I was just on it. But you're saying technically by law, Oklahoma law, she's technically still part of it even though her name is not on it. And in the past, I thought to put her name on it, I would then have to refinance the mortgage with the new interest rate. But maybe that's more of a different person's question. I don't know if you guys familiar with that process or not. For anybody else that's asking.
Right. You don't have to put her on. You don't have to refinance if you put her on the title with you.
Okay. Good.
Oh, okay.
Okay, good.
Well, that's
One
good.
of the main joys of marrying you is now she's vested in your house.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
It's a perk, Jody. It's a perk.
all of this.
So, because the reason why what I was hearing was whether she has signed it or not. Whether that had gone to the bank and said, "Hey, put her name on it." She's still vested by law from Oklahoma's standpoint, anyway.
That's correct.
Because
we're married.
She has a marital interest. There's a
Marital
difference.
interest. Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
if something happened to you and she wasn't on the actual deed with you, she would have to probate your estate.
Yes.
Okay, so
And
there's a difference.
Key point.
Oh,
So
okay.
she has a marital interest because she's your spouse, which means you can't sell it without her.
right.
Gotcha.
And then the whole probate. But yeah, you and I
Okay.
talked about that.
All right. Well, trust me. Sometimes this stuff can get really confusing, so that's why it's good to ask
That's,
questions.
that's a whole other conversation off camera.
Yeah, we don't have time for this. You better mind your P's and Q's over there.
Okay. So we now have title insurance or the title policy in effect. How long is it good for?
The title policy is good as long as you own the home. So until you sell the house to another buyer, that policy protects you.
Okay. That makes sense.
Sure.
So if you're,
About the customer's owner's policy. As long as you own the home, that policy is in effect.
okay.
Okay, so who gets to choose their title insurance provider?
Go ahead, Chris.
Generally speaking, Oklahoma is what we kind of consider loosely a buyer state. Since they are the one paying the premium for the title insurance policy, it's kind of a generally accepted practice that buyers get to choose, with whom they're going to close.
However, the legal answer to this is RESPA, which is the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, states that the buyer has the right to choose the title insurance provider. Okay, it's the buyer's. It is legally their choice. But you know, dealing with buyers, that they don't usually know who is the best title company.
Correct.
That type of. And so it's kind of an industry practice that the referral partners give the buyer a selection choice. Now, you will see sometimes that a seller may say, I want to close at XYZ title company. The legal ramification of that you could push if you ever wanted to, and of course in a market like this you probably don't because it's competitive, but if the seller insists on a certain title company to close it or write the title insurance, the seller is supposed to pay the title insurance premium in that instance.
Ah, okay. It's good to know.
Oh,
Okay.
I did not know that. Okay.
The more you know.
But again, in a competitive market where you were trying to just get your buyers and houses and stuff, I mean, nobody really ever pushes that. You know, most
Right.
realtors work together and be cooperative, and
Yeah.
if you have preference, they're not going to buck you on it, which, that's good too.
So the way I always look at it is that the sellers pay the commission and the buyers pay the premiums, the title premiums.
Okay. It's a fair trade-off.
Simplified.
Although there's some really interesting stuff going on in the courts right now
Yes,
regarding
there are.
religion, and it could be an absolute game changer. And,
I
and
know.
in my humble opinion, nobody's ever accused me of being an attorney. I don't think it's good for our industry.
I agree, and we know exactly what we're referring to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This is completely side, but it's real quick. Just because everybody's like, "What are y'all talking about?" There's been some issues where should the seller of the home pay for the commission to the real estate agents for the buyer, or should the buyer pay their own real estate commission? Right, because they hired
Their portion.
Right, their portion. So they split it equally, versus the seller usually paying the full amount. And not to get into percentages, how much you pay. That's just the general purpose of the argument. And so once that kind of settles, we'll figure out where to go. But in the end, it's like anything else. If you hire someone to provide you a service, you pay for that service, right?
Yeah.
So it's not a something that just should shock you. It's just the way behind the scenes how things work and the way they've done it for so long. So once they figure all that out, we'll just whatever it is, we'll adjust and go from there.
That's right.
What's the next question you got?
Okay, so what is the best way to hold title to your primary residence? And are there any pros and cons?
There's many ways to hold title. First of all, that is a lot of times dictated by the lender. If you're getting a loan or paying cash for the property.
Okay.
If you're getting a loan, we're going to follow whatever your lender states has to be done as far as vesting is concerned. 95% of the time, that would be Aaron and Jody Tuttle, husband and wife, as joint tenants with the rights to survivorship. Would be typically what you see when there's a lender involved. Some lenders will loan to buyers in their trust, so they can go ahead and put the property in their trust. Cash transaction, it's kind of Katie bar the door. You can do whatever you want on a cash transaction. You would want to add to that, Chris?
No, you pretty much covered it.
Okay. Pros and cons. You just want to protect yourself. You always want to be thinking ahead about what is best for you in the event that somebody passes away, for estate planning purposes. So that's an important thing to look at as a buyer. If you're a single person buying a home, good for you, congrats. But if something happens to you, what's going to happen to that house? So you have to think about that long term. And that may not be something you can fix at the immediate time you purchase it, but you can always add somebody into title with you or move it to a trust or something like that after you close.
And I will say, just to add to that a little bit, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but the default position for the state of Oklahoma, if you don't actually state that the vesting is tenants in common, doesn't give any rights of survivorship. We see it oftentimes on, in essence, what we would call a handwritten deed. We had an example not too long ago, a sad example. A mother grew ill, deeded the property over to her son. Mom, and she handwrote the deed. Mom passed away, and then tragically, son's wife passed away 6 months after that. He wanted to move on down the road and sell the property, but since mom had written the deed and didn't actually specify the type of vesting, it went to tenants in common, and the property had to be probated for the seller.
Oh,
And
wow.
also, out of everything holy, do not ever put a minor child in title. You cannot legally hold title to a property until you are 18.
And you can't trust children.
And you can't trust children. Especially adult children.
You both know my kids.
Yes.
Yeah. Although one of them's growing quite mature now in the gym, so proud of him.
Yes.
He loves me every day.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure he does.
All right, so let's go over.
And then, hold on.
Oh, you got some follow-ups?
I do, because
Okay.
if it has to go to probate, that takes months and months, up to sometimes years for it to get settled in a court system.
It can. I mean, there are different types of probates that can be done. If somebody dies with a will or without a will, that makes
Right.
it different. If you die and it's pretty clear who your heirs are and they all consent, to the probate or to it being probated in the sale. That's what's called a Section 239, very streamlined probate. I'm not an attorney, I'm just giving you experience. I want to be sure I give that disclaimer. But there is a faster track probate called Section 239, and I've seen those done in 30 to 45 days.
Oh, okay.
So it just depends on what you have in place when you die and the kind of probate that has to be done.
Okay, that's good to know.
I was just looking at the comments. By the way, if you guys do have any comments while you're watching this broadcast, feel free to shoot them to us, no matter what they are, and we'll put them out there.
Questions? Yeah.
Jennifer, I saw your situation where you're selling from Vegas and moving. You're curious as whether or not you could still buy a home if you had just started a job and you didn't have that long under your belt. So are some new programs that have come out for those that haven't been employed that long or self-employed. So just we'll reach out to you and then we'll walk you through that process and hook you up with the lender.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't worry. You're always in a position where you can buy a home. Let's see. Let's go on to tax savings, sort of, in this particular case. And that's usually what this is called, a homestead exemption. So talk about that a little bit.
So homestead exemption, every homeowner in the state of Oklahoma can file a homestead exemption on their primary residence. Okay, so even if you own a home now and you're selling it and you're buying a new home, you can move that to the new home. All right. Homestead exemption provides two basic benefits. The first one is it saves you a little bit of money on your annual property taxes. Everybody wants that, right? But the biggest savings is if you ever have to file bankruptcy or if anybody tries to sue you, they cannot take your homestead property. So that's the biggest benefit. And just so you know, thank you for saying that, because I want to go ahead and just tell you guys right now, Legacy Title is assisting with that process at every closing now. I think we are the only title company who is having that form completed and sent in on behalf of our buyers.
Oh, excellent.
Excellent.
But Lisa,
if you're a veteran and wanting to keep your original home state and it's not Oklahoma, can you file a homestead exemption?
Good question. So we had this conversation last week. So there are a lot of military people that come into Oklahoma because of Tinker Air Force Base. And the veterans have the right to choose what state they want to be considered their resident state. For example, somebody moves here from Florida. Florida is designated as their home state. They do that so they don't have to pay state income taxes. They get to keep that benefit of not paying state income taxes. So if you move to Oklahoma and you have Florida as your resident state, you don't want to file for homestead exemption, because if you do, that automatically makes Oklahoma your home state and you have to pay state income taxes. So it's good to ask the veterans those questions, and we are asking that at the table. If I close a VA buyer, I am asking at the table, is Oklahoma your designated home state or is it another state? So we are asking that.
And don't worry, for you Marines out there, she'll talk really slowly. Just kidding.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
You military guys are always jarring one another. All right, but to be clear, just for those that are curious, when you said that if you're sued or if they can't take your property, just know that, and you can verify this, is if you don't pay your taxes, the government can always take your property. Is that correct?
Yes. However, if you have a mortgage, your mortgage company is going to pay them before that happens. Yes, that is exactly true. It can't be taken back in tax sale.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Good to
absolutely.
know. All right, what's the next question we got?
Okay, so should a buyer or seller use a realtor from a title company standpoint?
Go ahead.
100% of the time. Absolutely. We and any title company out there working with all is going to strongly urge and recommend that every buyer and seller that comes in the door work with a good qualified real estate agent. You guys do more than show houses and hey, that room in there, the toilet's the bathroom. That's a small part of what you do. The peace of mind and protection just from a legal standpoint that buyers and sellers get when they're using a real estate agent is beyond the pale. They every single time you should use a real estate agent. Things got a little bit quirky during COVID, and folks could roll out of bed having no experience and sell their house for an absurd amount of money. But the research and data that came out, post-COVID, still indicates that every time that a realtor was used versus when Kalman FISBO, for sale by owner, when the seller sold the house, his or herself, on average, that realtor was still going to get a significant higher sales price, even when that seller sold it for above listed price. So every single time use a realtor.
And not to mention, you're their buffer, you're their advocate. And from our standpoint, transactions go 100% smoother when a realtor is involved.
I agree.
Folks don't, we're not, people aren't out performing surgery on themselves or extracting a tooth. I don't know why they think that they, are as qualified to go out and sell a house as what they are.
Well, I mean, we take extensive training and exams just to be able to call this our career. It's not just I'm working a day job and then, I feel like selling my house. I'm just going to put a for sale sign out. They have no idea.
Yeah,
they think they do.
It's so much to go through. It can be a real big headache really fast if you're trying to sell it by yourself. I had a friend that sold it across the street, and the new buyers for that, he was regretting the whole thing. Mm-hmm. So I get it. But to mention, to kind of follow up what you guys were saying, as part of being the buffer, also it's that trust factor, right? Because you're working with this team to walk you through this whole process and answer all your questions. So then you feel more at ease. And so when you're going into this room to meet you guys for the first time, there's already this trust built, team total. They've been with me this whole time. I feel good about this. I don't know Lisa and Chris yet, but I trust Jody and Aaron that they didn't steer me, wrong, and that I'm in the right place, and signing these documents, we're going to be good to go. So without that, buffer, that relationship builder, going in cold to a situation where you guys hand them a stack of papers and say sign can be very, very concerning.
Well, it's overwhelming.
Overwhelming, yeah.
Never trust Chris. Just see his name. Never trust Chris.
That's fair.
And isn't there somewhere in your documents that they always have to use the same realtor when they sell the property?
I brought it in all my documents.
I think that was actually the 28th Amendment to the Constitution.
Yeah, I believe so. It's in stone.
Right. Whoever brought you to that closing table.
That's right. All right, so the final question we have here for you, tell us about your core titles of legacy title. In other words, we can recommend you, to our buyers, and obviously we know the reasons, but you tell them directly why. What's
why
so special?
legacy title?
Yeah, why legacy title?
And why Lisa Kalman?
And definitely. We already know. We can leave Chris out of it, but definitely why Lisa and legacy.
I'm going to let Lisa actually answer your question, but I do want to give you a little bit of background. Whenever we met with, quick shout out with Melissa Titano is how you actually say her name, and Tony Meek last year, the biggest discussion is why are we doing this and why do we want to do this? And some common themes kept coming up, and we really all settled on the fact that we want this to be a good experience at Legacy Title. We are concerned with, the lives and the family life of our employees, our customers, the buyers and sellers, as well as our referral partners, you guys and, other agents, builders, lenders. And that's kind of the core foundation that we built this on is we want you to have a happy and healthy life at and away from work. And I'll let Lisa kind of take it from there.
He's exactly right. I know I gave you kudos for once, didn't I? Isn't that great? It's been a very good long career for me, and I working, like I said, for a company that wanted the whole pie. We don't need the whole pie. We just need a piece of the pie. And the piece of the pie that we want is the relationships with the customers. Relationships make a difference. And that is what has been able to help me have such a successful career is I learn about my people. I want to know about my people. I engage with the buyers and sellers. I love what I do. And I want people to see that when they come in here. Not to mention the fact that we have some just great core values. Our culture here is wonderful. And we are a faith-based company. And I think that is important to say as well. Our faith in Jesus is important. Tony Meek, and Melissa both, have those same values that Chris and I do. And we want that to be, people need to see that in dealing with us day to day. So it's a great place. You both know when you come in here, we just love on you, and we want you to feel important. And if you feel important, then your customers feel important.
We love on you legally and respectfully.
Yes, legally and respectfully.
Got to put that in there.
Right.
Asterisk.
Right.
All right.
And that is true. I feel like a family when we walk in there.
Yeah, for sure. The minute you walk in there, you feel at home, and it's nice. It's a good feeling. It's a good atmosphere. You know how the difference is. You can walk in a certain building, there's this aura, or there's just this coldness, and it's nothing like that. It's the opposite. So
yeah, it is.
It's good. It helps relax you and get you in that mode of buying a home.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And they got great treats too on the front
Bring
desk.
your kids and your dogs to closing. That's fun.
Yeah, bring your
We
kids
love
and your
that.
dogs. Yeah, bring your dog, Jody, next time. Bring your dog.
I know,
No.
I will.
Well, our dogs right now are getting restless because they haven't gone outside in a bit. So I guess that means we have to wrap this up. Thanks a lot, kids. So hey, Chris and Lisa, can't thank you enough for coming on
Yes, thank
online
you.
this morning and telling everybody about the title process. Again, it's one of those things you don't really know or hear about until you're in
Right.
it, and you really don't even understand it other than you're signing a lot of papers. So
Yeah.
both of you did a great job at explaining
Thank
behind
you.
the scenes and what happens.
Absolutely. Yeah, I learned a lot.
See you guys again later.
Yeah. So if you do decide to close or buy a home with Team Total Realty, you'll be visiting Chris and Lisa personally.
Yeah.
And, so
And just know you'll be well taken care of.
that's right. All right. Well, hey, we'll let you two go so you can continue on with your weekend. Again, appreciate you guys stopping by this
Thank
morning.
you.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much,
guys.
guys. Bye.
Always
Okay.
blessed.
You bet. See ya.
Well, that was good.
Yeah, that was so good.
Yeah, I learned a lot.
Yeah, it's amazing how much happens behind the scenes and how many parts of the equation go in
Right.
to the title process. And
Yes.
and I'm sure that was only the tip of the iceberg. I mean, they probably could have talked for another hour about what they do and how things are done. But
Exactly.
that's the general version of it, and it was good to know.
Yeah, it was good. It was informative.